A sleeping bag and tent, a campfire and marshmallows, a guitar and good company. These are the ingredients for the perfect camping trip. But what would you do if your retreat into the wilderness went awry? This is the story of three friends and how an innocent camping trip quickly turned sinister due to one vicious creature, the sea bear. The weekend began with optimism and hope for Mr. Squidward Tentacles.
I believe you're referring to the weekend of May 25th, 2004. You see, anybody who knows the history of Bikini Bottom can tell you that Squidward Tentacles was famously very antagonistic to his coworker and neighbor Sponge Robert, and that weekend he would be alone as Sponge Bob and his other neighbor Patrick were out in the wilderness camping.
Instead of solitude, to Squidward's disappointment, he would be subjected to the noisy nature of the two camping in close proximity to his home.
Yes, they were partaking in a domestic form of camping where you set up your tent in your front yard, and unfortunately, Squidward was able to hear that noise pollution through his window, which he was very, very against. He had written many letters to the HOA, I have some on file. He was distraught at the news, to say the least.
Squidward would confront the pair, expressing his frustration. SpongeBob, the gracious man he was, asked if Squidward would like to join them. Squidward would initially reject this invitation. SpongeBob would tell Squidward to have fun inside. This set Squidward off and ultimately convinced him to join the duo.
Squidward and his neighbors, that was a famously one sided relationship. They were overjoyed at the prospect of having their friend join them. But of course, Squidward, he had no interest until he was offered the Have Fun at Home challenge.
I think SpongeBob and Patrick knew the whole time what they were doing. They were giving him a real challenge with some reverse psychology.
He certainly was acting in an egotistical manner. I believe he wanted to prove that he was more of an outdoorsy type than Patrick and SpongeBob.
I believe Squidward absolutely came out with the right intentions, which, from what I saw, was to show off his auto-folding tent.
SpongeBob and Patrick were enthralled with Squidward's self-assembling tent.
They definitely tried to take some notes, but I think you're going to need more than just a precursory glance and some binoculars to really get that technique down. That was a 20, 25-year technique, in my opinion.
SpongeBob and Patrick sat down and began to roast marshmallows. The friends laughed with one another as they enjoyed the warmth of their campfire. It was clear, however, that Squidward was not enjoying himself.
A good time. I believe any historian, or even amateur historian of Bikini Bottom, could tell you Mr. Tentacles was very rarely having a good time in his life. Uh, I believe I was just at a museum opening. They had his button that read, "I wish I was somewhere else," which he was famous for wearing at work. And that sums up his whole personality towards everything.
To try and lighten the mood, SpongeBob grabbed his guitar and began to strum a few chords. He would go on to make music history.
Cambfirесong song. Cambfirесong song. And if you don't think that we can sing it faster, then you're wrong. But it'll help if you just sing along.
With SpongeBob, he's just a musical genius. I mean, he came out with so many different hits throughout the years. The Campfire song being one of the main ones. But he also had hits like "The Best Day Ever," which was a humongous musical number, and he really just knocked it out of the park. The song "Ripped His Pants," he came in with a whole chorus, really good old-fashioned doo-wop song. He had a song about a striped sweater. I mean, he can make lyrics out of anything.
It is clear that SpongeBob's Campfire Song changed the scope of the music industry.
Folk music was kind of that anchoring music genre at that time, and SpongeBob kind of took that, honed it, and really made it his. And so the Campfire song really leaned into that and used his guitar skills and kind of showed musicians what you can do with the key of A. I mean, he just kind of went after it and made this campfire groove that everyone just kind of went after. And so you saw bands like Van Halen and you saw bands like the Beach Boys, and they just took that and they ran with it, and good for them, because he just had a wonderful time making it and really changed the music scene.
The dramatic ending to SpongeBob and Patrick's performance was spectacular, but it was not without its controversy.
I did wince a bit when he smashed the guitar and a full entire drum set with his best friend in the middle of the front yard. Some would call that littering, some would call that danger to nature. I would say if I was an animal, I'd be mighty scared. I'd say everything but a sea bear would have ran from that.
Then it was Squidward's turn to provide music. He produced a clarinet and began to play, to the horror of the sponge and starfish. SpongeBob knew that Squidward was making a grave mistake, and that his clarinet playing might attract a sea bear.
Well, he made about the worst fucking mistake you can make. Pulled out a clarinet, dead of night, middle of bear territory.
Though Squidward was skeptical, SpongeBob and Patrick's fear of the sea bear was valid. Those who do not read the Bikini Bottom Inquirer or Fake Science Monthly might not believe in the sea bear, but the sea bear is very real, and a dangerous threat.
Son, they're real as you, I, and that camera sitting right over there.
Are sea bears real? Yes, I do believe sea bears are real. SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, Jay Tentacles, they all escaped with their lives that night, but it's a little known fact that out in the kelp forests, at least 12 other residents of Bikini Bottom were mauled by the sea bear on display that evening. They were locked up in its mighty maw and spit back out as fishy skeletons, just sort of a skull and a collection of rib cages and a tailbone. Something that you or I might see in a trash can underneath a loose banana peel.
Not believing a word the pair said, Squidward began to taunt. He began to perform all the acts that set off the sea bear.
Oh, he spit in the face of God. Well, at this current time, we have exactly 6 known causes of irating a sea bear. First thing you got to be aware of, believe it or not, is your diet. A sea bear can sniff cheese right out your belly from 40 miles off. Cheese only. All the dairy products, for some reason, are of no concern. Once you got your diet in check, the next thing you got to look up and down is at your attire. If you catch yourself wearing a sombrero, hoop skirt, or clown shoes out in the middle of the night in sea bear territory, you best be sure none of them are in a silly fashion. Take, for example, this right here Bowie hat was, say, a sombrero. You just use your imagination rightly. If I were to wear it, say, 9, 13 degrees off to the side, silly. Sea bear's gonna smell it. One flat buttoned, that's not what Target had in mind. Say it's meant to be worn both or none. Sea bear agrees. Just as in the city life and camping, you got to be accountable for your actions. Doubly so in sea bear territory. Because there are 4 things that will make these bears mad. First is stomping around. Can't be stomping. Absolutely not. Doesn't matter what boots you got, no stomping. Second, no flashlight waving whatsoever. Certainly not repeatedly. Certainly not repeatedly. Now, if you're going to play the clarinet, be careful. Poorly, out of time, out of tune, dry reed, all these are disliked by the sea bear. Clarinets can only be played well. I wouldn't even risk it. And as SpongeBob said, most importantly, do not recreate a chimpanzee, which is the most desired food by a sea bear. The only thing a sea bear hates more than not getting a chimpanzee, well, I don't rightly know. I've never been dumb enough to taunt one.
With nowhere else to turn, SpongeBob and Patrick did the only thing they knew how to do to protect themselves from the sea bear.
SpongeBob and Patrick, very quick on their feet, very famous for that, they created a sea bear protection circle around them. And that can be quite difficult. You can't make an oval, you certainly can't make a rhombus or any sort of shape with sides. A nice protection circle was how they staved off the mighty sea bear.
Oh, they were lucky. If SpongeBob wasn't able to draw a perfect circle, they would have rightly been screwed. That was quite auspicious, I think.
While the two were safe in their sea bear protection circle, the sea bear brutally attacked Squidward Tentacles.
Once one does attract a sea bear, the ensuing attack can be very, very brutal, and they'll just circle back and back and back. If somebody were to limp away after an attack, they'll see that as a sign of weakness and come in for that attack. If they're run away, that's a sign of fear. They'll come back for that attack. And of course, you've got to have a likable face, or they'll just decide they don't like you very much.
Unfortunately for Squidward, he failed to draw a perfect circle. This led to more attacks from the vicious sea bear.
Oh, he got his rocked. That bear almost turned him inside out. Luckily, he was able to jump into SpongeBob and Patrick's circle. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but verticality does not matter.
Thanks to SpongeBob's extensive knowledge of the sea bear, the trio were able to escape certain death. Unbeknownst to them, another threat lurked in the shadows that evening.
Well, everyone knows the only thing worse than a sea bear attack is the elusive sea rhinoceros.
The sea bear attack, that was the primary paramount threat of the night, but that was not the only threat. Of course, after the sea bear leaves, you have to deal with the attracted sea rhinoceros, which can be, unfortunately, very brutal. SpongeBob and Patrick, very prepared for the wilderness. They were safe from the sea rhinoceros's attack. They had been wearing their anti-sea rhinoceros undergarments.
Well, you'll need your anti-sea rhinoceros undergarments, which if you apply at the Bikini Bottom website, that's going to be wildernessbikinibottom.gov. You can apply for a free pair of sea rhinoceros undergarments right now. Everyone should have received them in the mail last April. If yours are soiled or the wrong size, please reapply. Everyone needs to have these. Get two, keep them in your car.
I'm wearing mine right now, but, Mr. Tentacles, well, he wasn't known for wearing any pants at all.
The three friends narrowly escaped with their lives that weekend. With quick thinking from SpongeBob SquarePants, he was able to protect himself and his friends from the vicious sea bear. Squidward learned a valuable lesson: to never underestimate Mother Nature.
Bikini Bottom is a town with a storied history. The attack of the sea bear is only one of those many stories. Even that very night, stories continued beyond what the archives will tell you. But that is a story for a different documentary.